For that person who's on the fence about coming to Contact Modalities in Delavan, Wisconsin, what would you tell that person?
What I would say is, what the feedback that I received post event. So again, I'm going into leading up this event, nervous, doing it all myself for the most part, lots of great volunteers. But the feedback that I got from everybody was not only were their minds blown by what they were learning. I had people that had no idea what to expect. They had heard of Chris Bledsoe, wanted to come and go to a Skywatch and see a UFO. Not only did that happen, but they learned so much, mind blown. They're on a completely different trajectory in their life, and not just a spiritual seeking trajectory. I see so many people who bought their first house, after the expo. I've seen so many people ditch that corporate job after the expo. I've seen people start their own businesses.
Welcome to Alien Wisconsin. It's been fantastic to finally get you on the show. I've been aware of you for some time and just really wanted to have you as a guest because you're doing so many incredible things. So this is Melissa Cain. And for those of you who don't know anything about Melissa, could you tell us who you are just kind of as a person? Just give us the kind of the high level.
Absolutely. Well, my name is Melissa Cain. I live in north central Wisconsin. I am a doting wife, 20 years married to my husband, John. I have an 18-year-old son and twin 12-year-old girls. And
wow.
Yeah. Doing it all, man. Running our business, doing these kids. It's great. I'm very blessed. But that's who I am primarily.
Well, that's fantastic. I'm sure you have your hands full with all that. So with most people who are working in this kind of space or come into this space, there's usually a moment that kind of sparks interest. Sometimes it's an experience. Sometimes it's a moment of a movie or something to that effect. Do you have any moment that got you interested in the paranormal space?
Yes. Well, going way back, I always had a vague interest in the subject matter because my grandparents lived half the year in Chicago and half the year in Arizona, New Mexico. And they would have sightings, full-on daytime sightings, nighttime sightings, and they were always super matter-of-fact about it. They'd come home and tell me as a little girl, like, we were driving along the highway in the middle of the desert, and there was this big, 20-foot cigar-shaped, spaceship, cruising along with us. So they'd told me about these things. So I was
wild.
I was like, wow. And they just never really thought, they just mentioned it and didn't really care one way or the other. My grandfather did subscribe to the Old Time Life series, these book series of mystic places and UFOs and ESP. So they were always kind of laying around. And so I was exposed to these things young and had an interest. But, fast forward, I grow up, I go to college at DePaul University, never thought a thing about any of this stuff. Was a believer, but never really looked at anything, cared about any of it. Started a career, met my husband, started a family, and just nothing doing for 20 years at least. Then in 2016, just September, it was like a Sunday. I'm sitting there, my kids were really young, and John and I are watching cable. We're, just flipping through channels. And my husband started out as a 100% skeptic. He wouldn't even entertain a UFO documentary, anything on cable. It was so, ridiculous to him. But one came on, and my son was sitting next to me, and my son was 9 or 10 at the time. And I'm like, John, keep that on. I want Jameson to learn a little bit about stuff like this, UFOs, because of Grandma and Grandpa Christie and blah, blah, blah. Something clicked. I saw some either NASA footage or space station, something, something that I've seen probably a bunch of times, before. But I was like, wow, that was really clear. And I remember leaving that room and going back into our den and getting on social media and the internet and starting to look up things like UFO sightings today and da-da-da and seeing all this incredible footage. And I immediately ran into Dr. Stephen Greer, a lot of Greer stuff coming at me at the time. And I saw, this movie Sirius that I had to see called Sirius, and I watched it that night on my phone. Blown away.
Wow.
Made my husband watch it the next day. Could not believe that people were actually, I'm getting chills just thinking about, because I'm reliving that experience. Couldn't believe that people were actually able to contact. It was always one of these things, like we were talking about how, UFOs happen to them. It was never where the person is initiating the contact. From that moment forward that's all I have read about, watched, consumed, studied 24 hours a day, changed my life, the way I raise my kids, what I do for a living, where I live, everything has been about that phenomena. And then, of course, more. It's kind of blossomed. So that was the instant. That was a very long answer to your question.
Oh, no. I think that's really important to see, like, what is the animating or driving force behind the things that we do and the life choices that we make. I mean,
and people are always hoping that I had some kind of mothership land on my front porch or, something. And no, it was just as simple as a television show. And at the right time, when I was ready to, receive, I guess.
You know what? I mean, that's really inspiring to all those people who are thinking about making content out there, because your content could be something that gets someone interested in the topic and really makes a difference in their life. So even if you think, oh, maybe I shouldn't do it, maybe I shouldn't make that podcast, maybe I shouldn't film that YouTube video or that Instagram reel, you might end up inspiring the next Melissa. You have no idea.
Absolutely. And that's so true. Absolutely true. It is in and of itself, media is a contact modality. It's just something like that. So that's right. That's very inspirational for people that are putting content out there. Very good point.
So you go from, becoming really interested in the topic around 2016. And then I believe you start organizing some events before the one we're going to be talking about next. Tell me about how you go from reading about it to doing it. How does that work?
Okay. Well, so like I said, my awakening, as I call it, started then, and it veered in that direction of Dr. Stephen Greer and CE5. And when I was studying this, and of course wanted to do it, I'm like, I got to learn how to do this. Because one thing about me is I'm a workhorse. If it can't be done, I'm going to make sure it gets done. So I bought his app. I started following everything that he did. And in learning about what the ETs were telling people, it really opened my eyes to the truth of our reality. And I realized and I've always been kind of a grateful person I always felt like I got some good luck, and
Sure.
The parents that I had and the grandparents that I had and the life that I felt like it was a card dealt to me. And I just realized through my studies how important it is to serve and give back. And when you feel as blessed as I have always felt my whole life, you should do that. And it's your duty. And it became my mission to offer a glimpse into this new world that I had discovered, because I was even more grateful now. And now I was like, whoa, this is amazing. This reality that I had no idea existed, this truth. Other people can really enrich their lives if they know this. So I wanted to start giving back. So with my little group of CE5 people that I discovered through Facebook, who were the kindest, most generous group of people I've ever met, really wanting to help. I have a resort that I own up in the Northwoods that I bought. We have 8 cabins, nothing fancy, by the way. We have 8 rustic Northwoods cabins on a beautiful lake that I grew up going to. That was my vacation spot growing up as a little girl.
Sure.
And I felt, I have these beautiful properties. It's a very popular vacation spot. I want to be able to maybe offer people a glimpse of CE5 and what you can do if they come up there. So we held our first retreat in 2019. And it was a group of 5 people: Deb Shakti, Ricky Butterfast, Kimberly Porth, Marcel Vidovic and Jeff Sell all came up from, all over the country. Jeff is from Wisconsin. Yeah. And they led a team, and we had about maybe 20 people, I think, for our first retreat. And basically they just taught how to do CE5. And Kimberly came up with the concept of, through her lifelong contact work, she, at some point, 10 years ago or whatever, became a Kundalini yoga teacher, which Kundalini yoga is all about the breath for the most part, breath work.
Sure.
So she found that by teaching breath work prior to making contact and meditating and stuff, enhanced the contact tremendously.
So for those who may not know, when we say CE5, the C is close and the E is encounters, and the 5 is of the 5th kind. So there's, of course, the popular movie Close Encounters of the 3rd kind. The 5th kind essentially just means that you reach out and you contact the ETs or the non-human intelligence or whatever it is. It's humans initiate the contact. I sometimes people don't know what that is, so I just wanted to bring that up.
Absolutely. No, I'm glad you did. Very true. Very true. So we had our first retreat there, but I will say, again, just being a regular person who saw a show and had this life-changing 180-degree, awakening. It took me a good 8 or 9 months of daily meditation, playing the crop circle tones, just everything I was supposed to do. And by the way, I used to be the worst meditator in the world, just monkey mind chatter going on all the time. But I was bound and determined, and it took me about 8 months before I actually finally saw my first something that was anomalous in the sky.
I would say that even if, you never contact anything, nothing ever shows up for you, meditation can improve your life in just small ways and just make you happier, healthier, and just, I think, a better and easier person to be around. That's one thing I would really encourage you. Even if you're bad at meditation, just give it a try, That's what I would say about that.
But that's what it's all about. So now, fast forward all these years, 10 years now, so 2026, 10 years, okay? I host these retreats. We dangle the carrot of the shiny lights in the sky, okay? Hey, everyone, you want to contact ETs? That is amazing, and they have great messages, and it's phenomenal, right? But the side effect is they learn how to meditate, they learn breath work, they learn all these other amazing tools, the ability to forgive others, be able to forgive themselves, clear the chakras and clear those blocks and live a beautiful life, because that's ultimately what it all boils down to. So like you said, even if you don't have the mothership land or you don't see these amazing things in the sky, you're going to find exactly what you need when you start focusing on these things. And it's going to be just beautiful.
Oh, first off, you come up with this idea of contact modalities. Let's just talk about that name. I think I was at a MUFON meeting last weekend, actually, and I mentioned contact modalities. And someone said, what does that mean? So I'm going to ask you, what does that mean?
Well, I did not come up with that term. So I first heard the term contact modalities. Grant Cameron, the researcher, ufologist, okay? I saw him speak in 2018 at Paula Harris's Starworks conference, which I used to work for Paula Harris back then for her conference for a few years. So, and he was talking about Ray Hernandez, who coined the term contact modalities. And so we all know that, spirits and mediumship have been studied for decades, and ghosts, just other types of ghosts, have been studied for decades. UFOs have been studied for decades. ESP has been studied for decades. Well, what people are finding out now is that those are not separate phenomena. They're all actually the same, we're under the umbrella of consciousness, just wearing different hats. It's all under the umbrella of consciousness. So these are all different modalities to make contact. And Ray Hernandez, he wrote this amazing book called Mind of God, and has samples of 4,000 experiencers and yada, yada, yada. And he found out that all of these different contact modalities have certain similarities. One of the similarities, and meditation's one as well. Breath work is one as well. Breath work's a type of meditation and can assist with meditation and yada, yada. But these contact modalities oftentimes will, and again, this is interviewing thousands upon thousands of experiencers, you'll connect with some sort of non-human intelligence. Most people will report that they've connected with some sort of intelligence that they either feel or they see or they hear, whatever it is. The other thing that a contact modality will inspire is oftentimes when people have a profound experience through a contact modality is they have some sort of spiritual awakening, whether it's a big one or a little one. Something changes the paradigm. There's a shift in the way they view the world.
People who are just getting into the topic, they view UFOs as basically, advanced airplanes, and they just see them as a technological, hard, lumpy object. This is just a better iPhone that's flying, so to speak. And right. I think that it's what you're talking about is something that is also really kind of established or part of what I'm going to call the UFO community, which is thinking about consciousness, thinking about the psychic or spiritual phenomena that seems to go with it, that as you study the phenomena more, it seems that there is this mental component. And I know all of those words are heavily weighted and all of those words are not exactly right. I'm not necessarily saying it is a spiritual, a psychic, or a mental. I don't think there's a great word in English.
We don't know.
We don't have a good word, and like each of those words is like super weighted. They think you're either talking about Miss Cleo or the Virgin Mary, and it's just very confusing for people, and they think you're crazy. And what we're really I think what you are trying to say is that there's different ways to contact these beings, and however that is, and we're still kind of all working on that problem, so to speak.
For sure. And what works for one person and resonates with them is going to be completely different than what works for somebody else.
Sure.
But it's all the same thing. You're piercing, behind the veil to see what's really going on. What happens ultimately? It becomes a completely sacred spiritual journey. And when people go at it long enough, when they study something and they're very detailed and regimented and they really leave no stone unturned, I'll tell you, it always ends up getting into some woo-woo stuff or some spiritual stuff. But you got to go the length, I started saying, like you were saying, everything was nuts and bolts. It was the metal craft in the sky, flying. There were propulsion systems and, all that kind of stuff. ETs were, humanoid type things, physical, living, that dwelled on another solid material planet, Now I'm totally in a different realm. Now my whole thing has evolved to such a different degree. I don't feel that way anymore. Although I feel that exists, but I think there's a lot more going on.
I've stumbled upon a metaphor to try to explain this to people who are still in the hard, lumpy object, nuts and bolts camp. And so last year when my nephew was 13, he was talking to his other guy friends who were also 13. And they were trying to figure out the age-old problem of how to get the attention of girls in their class. The classic problem. How do you get the cute girl to like you? Yeah. So their answer was that they needed to buy fancy shoes. That was their answer. That fancy shoes, the girls would see the fancy shoes, and then they would talk to them. And his mom kept saying, you could talk to them. You could talk to these girls. You could say hi and introduce yourself to these girls. And that's kind of what I've been thinking about the phenomena, is that maybe instead of trying to buy the fancy shoes, that you could try to talk to them No, you could try to talk to them. And I think it's such a simple solution.
So simple. That's awesome. That's an awesome metaphor. Yes, exactly. And really the way to do any of it and connect with it is you have to be open, you have to, and be quiet and really go within. And that's really hard for people in this day and age because we have so much distraction pulling us, jobs, family, the world, the news, everything going on that's trying its hardest to make us not connect with ourselves. And
sure. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're interested in this kind of study, going to something like Contact Modalities might help. Is it at all possible, if you're not the most, as you called it, woo-woo person, is there something there for you too?
Oh my goodness. So everyone's in a different part of their journey, right?
Sure.
So what trying to do with the retreat, I was doing it on a CE5 level. And then we kind of we did CE5 for many years. This 2026 will be our 8th year of hosting this retreat in the Northwoods that we do in August or September. But a few years ago is when I started realizing, because of my own practice, I realized, I started out with CE5. Well, then I ended up taking a year-long mentorship course with a physical medium, Julie Adriani in Chicago, which was amazing. And I did that not because I wanted to become a medium, but I was just interested in it, And when I took this year-long course with her and Michael Shane, who's another physical medium that she works with, I realized that there was so much overlap between what I had learned for years with CE5 and what was going on with mediumship. Even the breath work part, which I couldn't even believe it. I didn't know these physical mediums were doing breath work before they were having, trumpets.
Didn't know that either.
Yeah, I didn't have no idea. I was like,
no idea.
Yeah. So then I was also a helper, a facilitator in plant medicine ceremonies for people, where I would just assist. I wasn't a shaman. I'm not a shaman or anything like that. But I realized that those people needed that in order to connect with, pierce the veil and connect with our true reality. And there was a lot of similarities in their experiences that they were having in their healing. It was all in an effort to heal trauma for the most part. Regardless of where you are in your journey, just being exposed to a variety of different modalities like this, one of them is bound to pique someone's interest.
Could you give me the elevator pitch to someone who doesn't know what Contact Modalities is, but just maybe is tipping their toes in the water of this kind of the paranormal thing?
The Contact Modalities Expo came to me in a download, first of all. It just came to me, one of these, after the retreat a couple years ago. I was really buzzing from the phenomenal, connection that we had made at the retreat, not only with our star friends, but with each other. And it's May 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of this year, 2026. And yes, we have 3-day passes available. We have single-day passes available. But what really makes our event different, well, first of all, it's in the Midwest. So it's the first high-caliber event of its kind in decades. We have world-class speakers from not only all over the country, but all over the world coming to just
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we're gonna hit on the speaker lineup next, but it is incredible. So keep going, and we'll go right back to those speakers.
Exactly. So these speakers, it's a multi-track event, meaning that we have multiple stages going on all simultaneously. So if you show up there, you're going to have a choice. And again, you don't have to sit through lecture after lecture of things that, really aren't your cup of tea. You're going to have 4 different stages going on all at one time, so you can pick and choose where you spend your time. We certainly have a lot of lectures going on the main ballroom stage, but we have 3 other breakout rooms where you can actually, get your hands dirty and experience some of these modalities. And the reason that we do that is because, like I said earlier, the experience is what makes it work. It's what makes it stick. It's what has the effect. You can hear all day long about people seeing things and experiencing things, and a lot of people are like, okay, great, it's wonderful. I'm going to take your word for it, right? But when you really experience it, that's when the rubber meets the road, right? And that's when the big change happens in your life. So, so our event is extremely experiential because of that. I want to bring these experiences by the greatest teachers to our attendees so they get a little sample. They could dip their toe in, try it out, see what happens.
That's great. So you have the four different stages for speakers, and you have the breakout rooms for practical application. I think that's fantastic. Yeah. I want to talk to you about some of the incredible speakers. We simply don't have time to hit on all of them because I think there's almost 30 or more.
Yeah, close to 30.
So I'm going to pick the one that I'm really excited about. So unless you were, and I'm speaking to my audience in general, but unless you were living under a rock in 2025, the hottest podcast that actually dethroned the Joe Rogan podcast was the telepathy tapes. And it's just extremely exciting to get a chance to see Dr. Diane Hennacy from the telepathy tapes, who is going to be speaking, probably taking questions. This will be a really incredible opportunity if you're like me and followed the telepathy tapes and just was kind of just blown away with what was capable with those autistic children. Just breathtaking. And as I said, it was the most popular podcast in the United States. So there's an incredible appetite for this kind of information. And so I was really shocked to see that. And I want to say, kudos to you for booking that speaker. And it's going to be such a wonderful opportunity to go see her. Why don't you tell me about one of your favorite people that's coming to the Contact Modalities?
Oh my God, I love them all. I love them all so much. But so for the second year now, in 2026, we had the Bledsoe family, Chris Bledsoe and his family were our headliners in 2025, and they're going to return again in 2026 because we just can't get enough of them.
They're very famous.
Yeah, exactly. They are. It's so much now. It's crazy. So Chris will be doing Skywatches all 3 nights. One of the nights is a private VIP Skywatch opportunity that we're actually going to be busing people off site to do a private Skywatch with Chris. But he always comes with his beautiful wife, Yvonne. And this year we're going to have Chris Jr., his son, who experienced everything with Chris Sr. way back when in 2007. If you're familiar with their story at the river, I'm not going to go into it, but it was the huge, massive UFO experience that changed all of their lives, and they wrote the book UFO of God about. Emily Bledsoe, Chris's daughter, is going to be present as well. She's got her own set of gifts. She's been featured on Beyond Skinwalker Ranch. Just an amazing, amazing family doing so much good work. I mean, working with being studied by the government like hardcore for many years, been backstage at the Vatican with the Pope. I mean, it's crazy. That's
really wild. And of course, you're not, the Vatican doesn't make time for you, and the U.S. government doesn't make time for you unless they think there's something to it. Now, they each may think that it's something different. The Vatican may see it through a different lens, and the U.S. government may see it through a different lens. Just the very nature of contact modalities, people seem to see the phenomena differently. So talk to me, maybe we could highlight one or two other people about contact modalities. So, I saw that you have a speaker on the I always say this wrong, the Nazca Mummies. Is that Nazca Mummies?
Nazca, right. Like Nazca the Nazca lines, right? Like in Peru, those lines you grew up, I remember one of those Time Life books that had those Nazca lines of like the spider and the different things, just amazing. Huge geoglyphs or petroglyphs. I don't know the difference between the two. Jeff Sell will be listening to me going, Melissa, I've told you the difference between the two. Thierry Jamin. Now, I would say Haman, but when I watch his stuff, it's Jamin. He is a French explorer who was directly involved with the discovery of these mummies that are highly, highly controversial. But I learned of these, highly, highly controversial. I learned of them probably in 2018, maybe. Jaime Maussan did a big presentation on the mummies and the research about the mummies, supporting the mummies. And I had seen so many like UFO researchers and other research that were like super hot on the mummies. And then all of a sudden they changed their mind and decided, no, they're fraudulent, they're fakes. Out of the blue, never spoke of them again. But something in me, I don't know if it was my intuition or my desire, who knows, I just always felt that they were legit. I don't know why. Well, I read Thierry's book 3 years ago. I'm like, I'm going to read his book. I want to hear about his whole journey, everything that went on. And after I read that book, I was like, they are absolutely for real, not a hoax. If they were a hoax, they were hoaxed, 2,000 years ago, and now all this new research is coming out from all these different universities that are showing that these things are legit, and they're not us. They're not humans. So he's coming all the way from Peru to talk to us about this, and I'm so psyched about it.
Oh, it's absolutely incredible. I have definitely been back and forth on this topic myself. I think that there likely were some that were fakes, because I think there were people, much like anything where there's a gold rush, someone was going to make a copy to try to sell it to make a buck. I mean, that has happened. Yeah. And I've seen some of the, the medical grade scans of them that would essentially make it impossible to fake that level of detail. There's just, you really can't hide in an MRI machine. Like, it's going to see everything. And so, I mean, I don't know how you're going to fool that. So, I mean, I don't know what that means. I don't know. And I'm interested to see what the speaker says. They obviously know a lot more about it than I do. So that's one of the speakers I was interested in too.
I'm so excited that he'll be there because, and I think he's still saying that he believes they're off-world, which, again, we don't know. But where I'm leaning, just in my, in the world, Earthlings, but not human. I don't know. I'm not saying they are. I'm just saying, just thinking about different things, But anyway, I'm so excited because he was, he's like Indiana Jones. He was there, dealing with these looters, which the looters are the ones that actually discovered the mummies. And of course, you think right off the bat, well, they're looters discovering them. Well, they're the ones fabricating them because they're the ones selling them to, for the money, like you said. But not the case. So anyway, that's really fascinating. We also have, of course, Sarah Breskman Cosme, which I don't know if you're familiar with her work, but I'm
not.
Okay. Dolores Cannon was the lady who invented quantum hypnosis. I'm always screwing up the QHHT, what it stands for. But what it is, basically, it's regression hypnosis.
Okay.
And she puts her subjects under hypnosis, and Deb Shakti actually did a live hypnosis session of this nature on stage last year for everybody to watch. It was amazing. But what oftentimes happens during these sessions, sometimes it is a regression back to a previous life or something that happened previously in your own life that you need healed, that needs to come up. But oftentimes what will happen is an entity will pop in and speak through the mouth of the subject. And I mean, It could be an entity, not just like an ET. It could be Jesus. It could be some sort of ascended master. She records it all. She just documents it all. She puts it all in books and puts it out there for you to read, pretty much word for word. And the stuff is so amazing, the information that comes out. So she's very well known. She'll be speaking as well. You mentioned the telepathy tapes and Diane Hennacy, Dr. Diane. Dalia and Lidu are also going to be at the expo speaking, and they are mother-daughter, nonverbal autistic teenager who demonstrate full-on telepathy for all to witness and see.
I mean, that will be incredible.
They've worked with Dr. Diane for years and years and years. They have a very close relationship. So, they'll all be there.
I got to tell you, I'm getting even more excited for this event. I mean, yay. I think the telepathy tapes especially resonate if you have any family member or friends in your life who have autism, and I do. And I think it's just kind of that. It's very, I don't know, exciting, or it gets somehow emotional because it's. If you ever work with people who are either nonverbal or barely verbal, you know there's something in there, and you just really wish you could just get it out. And it's just such an inspiring thing to see something like this.
Absolutely. And it gives so much hope to the current parents and future parents that are dealing with this. And it's very inspirational. And I will tell you, every episode of that first season, I was just bawling. It was extremely emotional.
Tell me again, for that person who's on the fence about coming to Contact Modalities in Delavan, Wisconsin, what would you tell that person?
What I would say is, what the feedback that I received post-event. So again, I'm going into leading up this event, nervous, doing it all myself for the most part, lots of great volunteers. But the feedback that I got from everybody was not only were their minds blown by what they were learning. I had people that had no idea what to expect. They had heard of Chris Bledsoe, wanted to come and go to a Skywatch and see a UFO. Not only did that happen, but they learned so much. Mind blown. They're on a completely different trajectory in their life, and not just a spiritual seeking trajectory. I see so many people who bought their first house, after the expo. I've seen so many people ditch that corporate job after the expo. I've seen people start their own businesses. Other people found religion again, which is interesting, because we're not, we don't push any sort of organized religion or anything like that. But there are people that look at some of the things that other people might say are UFOs, and they might say they're angels. Everyone has their own take on it, like you were saying earlier. They see things through their own lens. But whatever works. What we try to do is everything that we discuss and teach has a positive outcome. Yes, when you go through an awakening, there are uncomfortable truths that come to light. And sometimes an awakening is not all, rainbows and unicorns. You go through, you do shadow work, you work on forgiveness and healing. But all that does is make your life better, where you can go buy that house, or you do that job switch, or you find the love of your life, or there's so many beautiful things. And the greatest thing, aside from hearing all of those little individual stories, is the connection that people made with others. So they found their tribe, right? You hear that a lot. But they really met people that were like-minded, that they could call lifelong friends, or they were able to take what they learned and go home and be able to have better relationships with their loved ones, whether it's their partner or their kids, or they'll understand their bosses better. People in their lives where there might have been some friction, they're able to learn the tools to go ahead and repair those relationships, or at least make them a little more tolerable. So for people that are curious, there's so much that I can pretty much guarantee that they will leave with some positive change in their life.
Well, I don't think we can top that at all. That is a wonderful pitch. And I mean, if you can get even a third of that out of this conference, I mean, that, changing your life, finding love, changing your career. I mean, if even a little of that's possible, what an incredible place to go. And I can tell you.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I can tell you that the CE5 community in Wisconsin has been extremely welcoming and kind, and I know that some of those people will be there. So at least I know that there will be some kind and wonderful people there. I don't know if you're going to find the love of your life, but I'm sure it's going to be a wonderful experience.
Right, exactly. Yeah, no guarantees on, future marriages. So please come.
Well, it sounds fantastic. It's a wonderful opportunity for those of us in Wisconsin to do something that's a little more heavy lifting than going to Belleville and seeing the parade, which is fun, but this is a little bit more hands-on, and I think this will be a wonderful experience for people. So I'm really excited to have you. I will include links to your website and have some graphics on there. But it's just been wonderful having you. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much, Ian. This is a long time coming. I can't wait to see you at the event.